Alright guys, Dominic here for Kit Guru, and yes, this is the new Cooler Master HAF case, the H500p. For those who don't know, HAF is one of those series that really kind of launched Cooler Master. It's a fan favourite, stands for high airflow, which we'll get to in a minute with the two fans at the front. But essentially, we first saw it at Computex 2017. Cooler Master have a new HAF case, and here it is, it's the H500p. So, let's get right into it. It's a mid-tower, quite a large mid-tower, but it's £135, just a penny under here in the UK. So obviously we'll have a look, is that good value? Should you buy this case? But first we'll do a quick tour of all the parts used, and then we'll get right down to the case, what I like, what I don't like, different features, that sort of thing. So, parts used: processor Ryzen 7 1700, and that's in a Aorus X370 Gaming 5 motherboard. GTX 1080 Ti, and then for the RAM, interestingly, we've gone for some Gale Super Loose RGB, which ties in with the RGB theme of the fans. Then the cooler is a Cooler Master Master Liquid 120, SanDisk SSD, and Seasonic Prime 650 watt Platinum power supply. Whew, so that's all the parts, and now for the case itself. Let's start with the things I like, because there are a lot of good features about this case, a lot of things I appreciated while building. Some of them we've seen before in other MasterCase cases, I guess. I remember doing the MasterCase Pro 6 when that came out. I think that was February or March. There's a few similar features. I should say, I've taken the glass panel off. There's a tempered glass side panel, as you would expect in 2017. I've taken that off just because it was reflecting my lights. But that attaches similar to the MasterCase 5T. It's got a little lock at the top, just a single latch which slides on the bottom, so you can actually tilt it out, which is one very nice feature. Other than that, we've got a removable top panel. This just pops off like so. It's plastic and it's acrylic. It's an acrylic window. It's not glass, which we will come back to in a minute. But that's the top panel. And then underneath that, you've got a radiator mount where you can fit, I believe it's up to a 360mm radiator, or two 140 fans, 280 radiator, so on, which is a very good support. And that bracket itself is actually removable as well. So it's simply 4 screws to either side, and the bracket pops off, so you can install your radiator or your fans outside of the case, which is a very nice feature. We've seen it on a few Fantex cases, but it's very nice here and very good to have. Also at the front, we've got, if I just get this panel back on properly, there we go. The front panel also hinges open. I'll try and do that for you. You might not be able to see this, I'll show it on B-roll. The front panel hinges open and then you can just pull it off. So I suppose if you want to hinge it open, you'll get more airflow maybe when it's the warmer months, but considering this is a high airflow case anyway, there's plenty of ventilation around the tops and the sides of the front and top panels, so you might not necessarily want to do that, but it's an easy way of getting the front panel off. If I just pull this off again, more plastic, filtered sides. I don't think the filters are held in place with clips, so they could be removed. I think that would make your life quite difficult. It would be much easier just to take off the panel, just clean the filters that way, instead of having to faff around with trying to peel off each filter. But filtered intake is good. Plastic and more acrylic, not so good, but we'll get to that later. But I do like the way it hinges open, allows for a bit more airflow should you want it. It's also very easy to go off. You don't have to pull from the bottom and feel like you're going to break your new case. So I'm just going to pop this down, save me faffing around trying to get it back on. Those are some of the external features. Coming to some of the internal features, we've obviously got this large, it's a 2-piece power supply shroud. So that's fully removable as well. You can remove this side piece here, the one furthest to my left or your right. That can actually be moved across, so you can have it in the furthest position, or you can move it in for maybe for a thicker radiator spot on the front or something. But both pieces are fully removable. There's some screws at the bottom here, 2 on the side, and then some more around the back, and we'll have a look at the back in a minute. But I do like that feature. Removable power supply shroud, very nice. And then you've also got plenty of rumble grommets down the side at the top. And there's also a 90-degree kind of plate that sticks out, which
We can look at it. We'll look at it more around the back, but that is also a very neat way of blocking off the side just when you get past the fans. It was one of my criticisms of the MasterCase Pro 6 was there was just empty space and you could see cables. There's a new bracket here and it keeps everything nice and tidy. The new H500p, there's lots of nice features. Everything feels like it's been done with care. Everything feels like it's been done to give users options. Even something so simple as the fan mounting. Instead of just having fixed points, you can slide your fan up and down at the back and on the top. So there's flexible mounting positions. Everything just kind of oozes quality and oozes class. The interior build quality is very nice. It's steel, so it's nothing really to write home about, but it feels solid. There's no flex there, and it's very nice. Now, before we turn around to the back, because there's a very nice party trick at the back, my personal favourite thing about the case, we'll just talk about the two RGB fans. Obviously, they are RGB, so you get that nice bling factor, and they're huge. They're two 200mm fans, which obviously gives the H500p its half heritage or lineage. They're very quiet though as well, so you get lots of airflow in, obviously because they're huge fans, but they only spin at 800 RPM because they're so big, they don't have to spin that fast. And that means they are actually whisper quiet. When I was stress testing this PC, running Firestrike stress test and Prime 95, the loudest thing was actually the graphics card, the 1080 Ti. You could barely hear the front fans at all. So that brings us nicely onto cooling. As I mentioned, under full load, the CPU actually only topped off at 44 degrees, which is very, very impressive. Obviously, lots of fresh air from the front is helping there, and the GPU topped at 81 degrees. So it's obviously helped a lot by the front fans, and also there's plenty of ventilation around the tops, the sides, and of course the front. Now, as I mentioned, we'll just turn around to the back, and I'll show you the party trick of the H500p. Right, so case is now on its, it's facing, the rear is facing you, so you can clearly see where are the cables, or you can't see the cables. That's because Cooler Master have put in this massive plate here, and this is purely for aesthetic purposes. It just hides all your cables. It's quite funny actually, my cable management is not the best, and I didn't even do anything with this case. I literally put all the cables in, whammed this plate on top, and there you go, and it looks perfectly tidy. Obviously, you can just about see over here my EPS 8-pin for the CPU. I just tied that down with 2 cables, but everything else just routes neatly under here, and then I've got my graphics card cables, the most of the front panel connectors, then the PCIe power. It's all just under this plate, which just attaches with 2 screws. And if I've got my screwdriver here, I'll just pop the plate off so you can see how messy it is underneath. And you can see how useful this plate really is, because it really just clamps down your cables, looks great. So now the plate's off, you can see literally everything's just hanging there. It's not tied down at all, it looks a mess. But with the plate on, it uses just 2 screws, one here, and then it latches in on the other side. And it just keeps everything really tidy. It's a really great way of doing it. I know Corsair did something slightly similar on their Crystal series, but that was a very thin bar. This plate is quite large. It will hide all your cables very well, and it's just so simple, but it really works. It makes the back look so much tidier. If it was just left like this, you'd be thinking, oh, it's a bit of a mess really, isn't it? But simple vanity plate on top, perfect, job done, and I'm really happy with it. It's just something so simple, but it just makes everything look so much nicer. And I wouldn't want to show this to anyone really if I didn't have this plate on it. But put the plate on and it looks like you've done a really good job, when literally I just plugged everything in. I put no effort into the cable management. Perfect. Right, so on the whole, there's really a lot of features to like about this case. That rear vanity plate is my personal favourite. You've got obviously lots of things like the removable panels, removable PSU shroud, internal cable grommets. That all works really well. However, there's one main issue that stops me from fully, absolutely loving this case, and it's the front and top panels. It's just because they're made of plastic. Obviously, it looks good from a distance. If you're looking at it, I think, wow, you think it's probably metal. It looks absolutely fine. I've got no problem with how it looks. If they're going to use plastic, that's fine. But it's just a bit creaky. It's quite relatively flimsy. it's not, the panels don't secure very well either. They're very easy to just knock off, knock out of place, and the acrylic also scratches incredibly easy. This top panel, I just wiped it down with a cloth, just a normal cloth. It wasn't a microfiber, but just a regular cloth. I wiped it down, scratches everywhere. It just slightly undoes the kind of premium look and feel that Cooler Master was going for. And primarily, if you were to pick up the case from the front or the top, the plastic would I'm certain the plastic would break and you'd be having a very bad day. So it's just, my main gripe is this build quality at the top. If I can just get this panel back on, it's just the build quality really. I would much prefer to have a metal front panel with glass. I'm certain that would increase the cost, but even I'd be happy to pay another £50 if it was metal and glass. Other than that, my other criticisms are very, very minor. One, you have to actually remove both pieces of the power supply shroud to actually get your power supply in. I'd rather there was some kind of rear bracket you could slide out, attach the power supply to, slide in. As is, it's just a bit of a faff, far from the end of the world. Or just add an extra few minutes to your total build process. And then last criticism, the front fans, you have to use a 4-pin RGB header. So if you don't have one on your motherboard, or even if you don't have one, I know Asus they've actually put 4-pin RGB headers on their graphics cards now, but if you don't have a 4-pin RGB header available to you, you are slightly stuffed. So I would have liked to see some kind of integrated lighting, maybe a controller with a front panel button where you can control the lighting that way. As it is, I had to connect mine to my motherboard. It works fine, but if you don't have that option, then the RGB is kind of not gonna be lost to you. Overall, I do really like it. I really like the internal features. I like the external features. I like the removable panels. The only major downside for me is ignoring the power supply and the front RGB fans because they're very minor points. The major downside for me is the plastic panels. They look good. I wouldn't say they ruin the premium feeling. They just kind of lessen the overall effect. Everything feels slightly cheaper. My overall impression of the case feels slightly cheaper just because the plastic's a bit flimsy, a bit creaky, and the acrylic scratches very easily. However, lots of good features, lots of good cooling, and overall it's very easy to build with. My favourite thing by far is the vanity plate at the back, probably just because my cable management is terrible usually anyway, so that makes me look like some kind of cable management wizard when I'm far from it. But overall, H500p, it's a great return for half. Very good case from Cooler Master. Very happy to recommend it. It's just a shame about those top and front plastic panels. But I'm Dominic for Kit Guru. This is the H500p. If you like this video, give us a like. You can also subscribe if you haven't already. And then make sure to check us out on our social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. We're happy to interact with you guys over there. So thanks for watching. I'm Dominic with Kit Guru.